The Eagles were down by 3, fourth quarter, 8 minutes left on the clock, the kind of moment that defines legacies. But what happened next wasn't about football at all. It wasn't about X's and O's or touchdown passes or championship rings. No, what happened next would shake the NFL to its core. Hurts had just finished reviewing plays with his offensive coordinator when he heard it. At first, it was just background noise, the usual stadium roar that players learn to tune out. But then it cut through everything else. Sharp, ugly, unmistakable. A voice shouting, "You're ape," from the front row, close enough to carry across the sideline. The kind of words that don't belong in 2025. The kind that make security guards' heads snap around. The kind that make mothers cover their children's ears. The stadium didn't go quiet. It never does during the Super Bowl. But something shifted, like a ripple through the crowd. Those closest to the source turned first, faces morphing from excitement to disgust. Then others, a wave of realization spreading through the section. Hurts didn't move at first, didn't flinch, didn't give any sign he'd heard it. But his teammates saw the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers gripped the tablet just a fraction harder. The voice came again. "You're a monkey! Go back to Africa!" Louder this time. Emboldened by alcohol and the anonymity of the crowd, more heads turned. Phones came up, recording. In the age of viral moments, everyone knew this was about to become one. That's when Jason Kelce, the Eagles' veteran center, stepped forward. "Where's it coming from?" His voice carried the kind of authority that comes from a decade in the league. A few fans pointed toward a man in the front row, red-faced and swaying slightly. The man stood up, pointing directly at Hurts. "Yeah, I said it! What are you going to do about it?" His friends tried to pull him back down, suddenly aware they were becoming the center of attention at the biggest sporting event in America. Hurts finally turned, slowly, deliberately. The stadium's massive screens caught his expression, not anger, not fear, just a calm, steady gaze that somehow made the moment even more intense. "Sir," Hurts said, his voice carrying despite the stadium noise, "I hope your children aren't watching." The simplicity of it, the dignity, the way he managed to make the heckler seem small without lowering himself. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in support. Cheers and applause rolled through the stadium, but the man wasn't done. He pushed off his friends, stumbling forward against the barrier. "Don't you talk about my kids! You—" And there it came again. That word, that ugly, ancient hatred wrapped in a single syllable. Security was already moving, but they weren't fast enough to stop what happened next. Not the violence everyone expected. No. Something far more powerful. Hurts walked to the edge of the sideline, just a few feet from his abuser. The stadium's cameras followed him, broadcasting his every move to millions watching worldwide. He stopped, looked directly at the man, and smiled. "I forgive you," he said, clear enough for the nearby microphones to pick up. "But they won't." He gestured to the crowd around the heckler, where dozens of phones were recording, where faces showed nothing but disgust, where even the man's own friends were backing away. The security team reached the section, 2 officers in yellow jackets, moving with practiced efficiency. But before they could act, something remarkable happened. The crowd around the heckler started chanting, "Yeah, you Paul, get him out! Get him out!" The chants spread like wildfire, section by section, row by row, until half the stadium was demanding justice, not with violence, not with more hatred, but with a unified voice that said, "Not here! Not anymore!" The man's bravado crumbled. Looking around, he finally seemed to realize what he'd done, where he was, what year it was. His face changed from anger to fear as he realized this wasn't going to be a funny story to tell his buddies. This was going to be his legacy. As security led him away, the crowd's cheers grew louder. Not celebrating his removal, but something bigger, something more important. They were cheering for Hurts, yes, but also for progress, for dignity, for the right way to handle hatred. Hurts turned back to his team. "Let's win this game," he said. And every mic picked it up, and the crowd roared even louder, because in that moment, it wasn't just about football anymore. It was about showing the world how to rise above. But as the man was led through the tunnel, both he and Hurts knew this story was far from over, because in the age of social media, some moments live forever, and this one was about to explode. Within minutes, the moment was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The video spread faster than a wildfire in July, each clip showing a different angle, catching every detail of what would become known simply as the moment. Hurts' response started trending, then not in our game, then not in our game. The NFL's official social media accounts stayed silent for exactly 8 minutes before releasing their statement. The NFL has zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior of any kind. The individual has been removed from the stadium and banned from all future NFL events. But the real story was unfolding back on the field, because Jalen Hurts wasn't done, not even close. With 7 minutes and 23 seconds left on the clock, he jogged back onto the field. The stadium was still electric, buzzing with an energy that transcended sports. Every eye in the building was locked on number one. "Your play, kid," the offensive coordinator said through the headset. "What do you want?" Hurts adjusted his helmet, looked at the defense, and smiled. "Let's show them exactly who we are." The next play would be replayed millions of times over the next 24 hours. 3rd and 7 from their own 30-yard line. The defense was expecting pass. Everyone was expecting pass. Instead, Hurts took the snap, tucked the ball, and ran straight up the middle. One defender missed, then another. The crowd's roar built with each broken tackle. 20 yards, 30. The safety had an angle, but Hurts wasn't going down. Not tonight. Not after everything that just happened. 40 yards, 50. The entire stadium was on its feet now. Even fans of the opposing team were cheering. Because this wasn't about the score anymore. This wasn't even about football. 60 yards, touchdown. The explosion of sound that followed wasn't just celebration, it was catharsis. It was justice. It was proof that the best response to hatred isn't more hatred, it's excellence. Hurts didn't dance, didn't showboat. He simply handed the ball to the referee, pointed to the sky, and jogged back to his sideline. But his teammates weren't having it. The entire Eagles bench cleared, surrounding their quarterback, not just celebrating a score, but making a statement. Touch one of us, you deal with all of us. Up in the broadcast booth, the commentators were struggling to find the right words. "In all my years covering football," the veteran announcer said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've never seen a moment quite like this. The poise, the dignity, the response. This is bigger than the Super Bowl, folks. This is about who we are as a sport, as a society." His partner cleared his throat. "They'll be teaching this moment in school someday. How to handle hatred with grace. How to respond to ugliness with beauty." Down on the sideline, the Eagles head coach grabbed Hurts by the shoulder pads. "You good?" Hurts nodded, that same calm expression on his face. "Never better, coach. Never better." But in the stands, something extraordinary was happening. Fans began holding up their phone lights, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds, until the entire stadium twinkled like a field of stars. A spontaneous show of solidarity that no one had planned, no one had coordinated. The network cameras panned across the crowd, capturing faces of every color, every age, every background, all united in this single moment. Some were crying, others were hugging complete strangers. Parents were holding their children close, using this moment to teach something important. Social media was exploding. Celebrity reactions poured in. This is how you handle hate. This is how you change the world. Jalen Hurts just gave us all a masterclass in dignity, respect. Watching this with my kids. Thank you at Jalen Hurts for showing them what real strength looks like. Not in our game. Even politicians were weighing in, though Hurts would later say he wished they hadn't. This wasn't about politics. This was about humanity. The game clock continued to wind down, but the energy in the stadium never dropped. Every time Hurts took the field, the roar grew louder. The opposing team's fans were even cheering for him now. Because sometimes, some things are bigger than rivalry, bigger than competition, bigger than the game itself. As the teams lined up for what would be the final drive, the stadium announcer's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please note that Allegiant Stadium has a strict, zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior. Anyone engaging in such behavior will be immediately removed and permanently banned from all NFL events." The crowd erupted in cheers again. But they weren't just cheering the policy. They were cheering the change, the progress, the statement. On the field, Hurts gathered his offense around him. The Eagles were down by 3, 1 minute left, ball on their own 25, championship on the line. But everyone in that huddle knew they'd already won something more important than a trophy. The huddle broke with purpose. Every player on that field knew this wasn't just another game-winning drive attempt. This was about writing history. Not just sports history, real history. Hurts stood behind center, scanning the defense. The stadium was deafening, but somehow different than the usual Super Bowl roar. This wasn't just fans cheering for their team. This was humanity cheering for humanity. First play, Hurts dropped back. Pressure came fast. Two defenders broke through the line. In years past, this would have been a sack, but not tonight. He spun away, rolled right, and fired a bullet between two defenders. 20 yards. First down. The crowd's reaction nearly blew the roof off. In the luxury boxes, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell was already on his phone, reportedly crafting a league-wide memo about updating security protocols. On the sideline, cameras caught Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie wiping his eyes. Next play. Another pass, this time a quick slant. 15 more yards. The Eagles were moving, but the clock was running. 45 seconds left. In the stands, phones were still recording everything. Live streams captured what the network cameras couldn't. The raw emotion in the crowd. Parents holding their children closer. Strangers of different races hugging. Security guards wiping away tears while trying to maintain their professional composure. 30 seconds left. Ball in the opponent's 40, still down by 3. Hurts called an audible at the line. Those closest to the field heard him shouting, "Unity! Unity!" Whether it was the actual play call or something more symbolic, no one would ever know for sure. The snap. The protection held. Hurts looked left, then right. The coverage was perfect. Then, suddenly, a lane opened up. Just like before, he tucked the ball and ran. But this time, something magical happened. The opposing team's safety, who had a clear shot at him, seemed to hesitate for just a fraction of a second. Later, he would tell reporters, "In that moment, I saw more than just another player to tackle. I saw history being made." Hurts cut left, then right. 20 yards to go. The crowd was beyond noise now. This was pure energy, pure emotion. 15 yards. 10. Two defenders converged on him at the 5-yard line. In any other game, in any other moment, they would have brought him down. But not this time. Hurts powered through both tackles, spinning, driving, refusing to go down. Touchdown. The explosion of sound that followed wasn't just celebration. It was redemption. It was justice. It was everything that's right about sports, drowning out everything that's wrong with the world. The entire Eagles team mobbed their quarterback in the end zone. But this celebration was different. It wasn't just about taking the lead in the Super Bowl. It was about something bigger, something more important. As Hurts was finally helped to his feet by his teammates, the stadium's big screen caught his expression. Still calm, still dignified, still refusing to let hatred steal his joy. The network broadcast cut to commercial, but the live streams kept rolling. They caught what happened next, something that wouldn't make the official highlights but would be shared millions of times on social media. Hurts walked to the spot where the heckler had been sitting. The section was still full of fans, many of whom had witnessed the ugly incident up close. He pointed to a young boy, maybe 10 years old, wearing his number 1 jersey. The security guard helped the boy over the barrier. Hurts knelt down to eye level with him. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus," the boy said, trembling with excitement. Hurts took off his wristband and handed it to Marcus. "Remember this night?" he said, loud enough for nearby fans to hear. Not because of what that man said, but because of how everyone else responded. That's the real America. That's the real game. Marcus hugged him, tears streaming down his face. The moment was raw, real, unscripted, perfect. Back on the sideline, the defense was preparing to take the field. There were still 28 seconds left. The game wasn't over. In football terms, anything could still happen. But in every other way that mattered, the victory had already been secured, not just for Hurts or the Eagles or even the NFL. This was a victory for progress, for dignity, for the better angels of our nature. As the defense lined up for what would be the final series, the stadium announcer's voice crackled through the speakers one more time. "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise." But this wasn't for the national anthem. This was for something else. Something unprecedented in Super Bowl history. The announcer's voice filled the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join together in showing that hate has no place in our game, in our stadiums, or in our society. 90,000 people stood as one. The network cameras panned across the crowd, capturing a moment that transcended sports. People who'd been enemies just hours ago, fans of opposing teams, decked out in different colors, stood shoulder to shoulder, many with tears in their eyes. The defense didn't just hold, they dominated those final 28 seconds. Each tackle, each defended pass felt like another statement. The opposing quarterback's final desperate heave fell incomplete as time expired. The Eagles had won the Super Bowl, but the usual celebration script was about to be rewritten. Instead of the traditional chaos and confetti, something extraordinary happened. The winning team didn't immediately mob each other. Instead, led by Hurts, they formed a circle at midfield. Players from the opposing team, catching the magnitude of the moment, joined them. The stadium fell silent, not from any announcement or request, but from the sheer power of what they were witnessing. $100 million athletes from both teams kneeling together at midfield, a gesture of unity that would be replayed for years to come. When Hurts was handed the Lombardi Trophy, he didn't immediately hoist it. Instead, he took the microphone, something rarely done in the immediate aftermath of a Super Bowl victory. "This trophy," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed stadium, "belongs to everyone who stands up against hate, everyone who chooses love over fear, everyone who believes that what unites us is stronger than what divides us." Then he did something unprecedented. He invited Marcus, the young boy from earlier, to help him lift the trophy. The image, a Super Bowl winning quarterback sharing the sport's ultimate prize with a young fan, became instantly iconic. The post-game press conference was standing room only. Reporters from around the world, not just sports media, packed the room. The first question, predictably, wasn't about the game-winning drive or the tactical decisions. "Jalen, can you take us through what was going through your mind when you heard those words?" Hurts leaned into the microphone, that same calm dignity still present. "I thought about my father, my grandfathers, and every person who endured far worse so I could be here today. I thought about all the kids watching and what message I wanted to send them. And I decided that love will always be stronger than hate." The press conference clip went viral within minutes. Hurts' wisdom started trending worldwide, but it was his next answer that would be quoted in history books. "Some will say we should just stick to sports," he continued. "But sports has always been about more than just the game. It's about bringing people together. It's about showing what's possible when we see each other as human beings first." Tonight wasn't just a Super Bowl victory. It was a victory for human dignity. The aftermath was swift and far-reaching. The NFL announced a comprehensive new anti-discrimination program the very next day. Stadium security protocols were overhauled league-wide. Sensitivity training became mandatory for all fans purchasing season tickets. The heckler's identity emerged online despite efforts to protect his privacy. He lost his job, his social standing, his dignity. But even then, Hurts took the high road. When asked about the man in a follow-up interview, he said simply, "I hope he learns, grows, and becomes a better person. That's all any of us can do." A week later, a photo went viral. The heckler's teenage daughter, wearing a Jalen Hurts jersey, holding a sign that read, "My father was wrong. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Sports Illustrated's cover story said it best. The night football became more than a game. Years later, people would still talk about Super Bowl LVII, not just because of the dramatic finish or the Eagles' victory, but because of a moment that forced America to look in the mirror. A moment when an ugly act of hatred was transformed into a powerful demonstration of unity and grace. In his Hall of Fame speech 5 years later, Hurts would reference that night. "They say football is just a game, but on the right night, with the right people, it can be a platform for change, a chance to show the world not just who we are, but who we can be." The game ball from that night now sits in the Smithsonian, next to other artifacts that tell America's ongoing story of progress. A reminder that sometimes the biggest victories don't show up on the scoreboard. And somewhere in America, a young boy named Marcus still has a wristband that reminds him of the night he learned what true strength looks like. The night when hate tried to steal the show, but love won the game.